Okay, thank you, Annie. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I just want to do some introductions here. I'm Luther Jackson. I'm from NovaWorks, and I'm going to give myself a title of co-leader emeritus. How's that? Is that pretty good? Yeah, that's a good title. This is welcome. A new year brings a new format. So this is our 1 hour format. And the key to making this work will be to be succinct. So we'll say that a few times during the meeting, but we could practice now with introductions. So if we could just do name and affiliation, that would be great. And I'll start with Anita.
Hi, I'm Anita Gay. I work at Bayback Media in San Francisco. We're a 45-year-old arts nonprofit. I'm already talking too long. I've been with Apprenticeship for several years now in the sphere and worn many hats. So I'm just excited to be here and moderating the group today.
Annie?
Oh, you're on mute.
So sorry, I'm multitasking, trying to get questions in there. Annie Tatnan. I'm currently doing some independent HR and talent development consulting. Apprenticeship is very near and dear to my heart, as is this group. I've worked in various nonprofits on the cause and very committed to expanding apprenticeships in the state of California and beyond, so that my 8-year-old son has more opportunities. I'm going to say put him into the mix. I've never done that since, but I've been thinking about him lately. So Orion, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Annie. Good to see you all. Orion Willis. I work for the City and County of San Francisco and manage a tech training initiative called TechSF. Proud founding member of this meetup years and years ago at this point. So excited to see what we come up with in 2023. I'll kick it over to John Dunn.
I'm John Dunn, currently the Regional Director of Apprenticeship for the Bay Area Community College Consortium, formerly running around Sacramento doing all kinds of stuff with the Chancellor's Office and Labor Agency and whatever. And I actually got one of these started after you all did in Sacramento, but there's nobody around downtown anymore. So we'll see if we can re-up it. I don't know. We had 3 meetings before the big COVID hit. So
you can invite them to this group.
Kristen.
More the merrier.
Hey, Kristen Wolf. I'm with Social Policy Research, dialing in from Oregon and kind of an adjunct dial-in member from out of state, but regular participant.
Thanks. Great to see you. Temple.
Oh, I'm just a regular member of your club since I don't know when, long time. I'm here just to maybe give you ideas of from my perspective rather than from your perspective, so that maybe it could help people.
Thank you. Tina.
Hi, I'm Tina Robertson, and I'm with Bitwise Industries. And to be fair, my introduction to apprenticeship came because of Bitwise, but I immediately became a passionate, lifelong supporter, encourager, and love that I get to join this group.
Great. Welcome. Michaelin.
Hi, everyone. I'm new to this group. My name is Michaelin Romero, and I recently started a job at TechSmart. We're a software and workforce development company, and we have a pre-apprenticeship that we've had for a year or two. And I was hired to launch some apprenticeships and internships and things for our learners. And I don't live in the Bay Area anymore, but I used to work for Carnegie Mellon, Silicon Valley. So for those of you in the Bay Area, I kind of miss living out there, but I am actually in New Mexico right now. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. And Adrian.
Hi. Here's what I found. Oops. I'm hoping that you can hear me because I can't get my screen to pop on my device. So I'm trying to change devices. Anyway, I'm Adrienne Summers. I work for the American Association of Community Colleges. I just finished an apprenticeship grant with community colleges with a Department of Labor cooperative agreement for about $20 million to basically provide 16,000 apprentices. We did 22,001, and I'm now currently working on an ABA grant with electric vehicles which is about an $8 million grant.
Oh, that's exciting. Thank you.
Yes.
Anita, it's all yours.
Thank you. Well, it's good to have you guys here. It sounds like most of you have attended at least a few of our meetings in the past. But basically, we're an informal collection of folks in the apprenticeship sphere, mostly employer facing, although Temple is a great example of somebody who is kind of more on the employee side of things. But we try to get together every month to have an informal conversation about what our challenges or successes are in the apprenticeship area, and kind of it's a source of inspiration, kind of give each other thoughts and ideas of how to tackle some of the issues that have come up for us. We try to have a guest speaker or a presenter each month, but for various reasons, we don't have one this time, and thought it might be an awesome opportunity to get your direct feedback and kind of what you want apprenticeship to look like going forward. This is an organization that's across the country and including Canada. Like we could be bringing in various speakers. We could cover various topics. So just curious to hear what you think. We have a selection of questions that we were going to put to you. I'll put them all in the chat at once so you can kind of get a preview coming your way. We're gonna knock these around. My thought is open to everyone's input. If you want to contribute, maybe raise your hand. And yeah, we'll just take it from there. But for folks who have been here before, like what is a topic that stood out to you from previous meetings? We've got some background noise happening, sorry. But what is like an experience that you've had at ApprenticeSIP in the past that has maybe stood out to you, or value that you found in our group? I'll start with that. And I think to start with, you can either just chime in or raise your hand, whatever you feel comfortable with. Yeah, Tina.
I haven't attended very many, but I did attend one where they talked about degreed apprenticeship. And man, that set my world on fire. And I've kind of been obsessed with it ever since then. Just today, I was having a meeting not in Chicago, but with community colleges in Chicago, and they are all in on degreed apprenticeship. And so that's my brief answer. But
yeah, Tina, you were texting me after that last meetup about
I was
that.
on fire.
Yeah, there's been a lot of kind of progress just across the country, I think, in terms of credit for prior learning and all sorts of ways of connecting on-the-job training and work-based learning to college credits with the intention of, apprentices gaining degrees. And so just a huge opportunity there. And I think we will probably bring that topic back up this year, but we're taking notes on it, on all this. So thank you.
Yeah, I made note of that. Thanks, Tina.
What else? Kristen, was it the was it? Can you see that? Ripen?
No, it was the new apprenticeships with Drew Young Voller.
That's right.
And these, Annie, these are recorded. Do we disseminate them afterwards, or that would be something to consider too, having maybe a YouTube channel, something like that, where folks can kind of go back and revisit?
That's a great idea, and I can, share the notes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I can at least, well, if you want to do your own YouTube channel, but I can host some of that on the BACCC site in some form or another.
Oh, great.
So,
okay.
As far as the top, I haven't been to them, obviously. Have you gone down the intermediary road of inviting some of them into this, or not?
Yeah, I mean, I actually work for intermediary. BAVAC Media is an apprenticeship intermediary, but that would be an interesting focus for an entire session.
Yeah, I think we've maybe not formally said, okay, we're hearing from the intermediaries, but there are so many typically present that perspective comes in. But I think it's so important to further define it. And, I was talking to a nonprofit who kind of wanted to get into that space because it seems like there's just ample opportunity for those roles. So
yeah,
there's plenty of work to go around, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of dovetails with the, yeah, like past apprenticeships that we've enjoyed and topics we'd like to see down the pike. Yeah, any topics that you feel kind of a deep curiosity about, something you've been really kind of wrestling with that you'd like to learn more about in your field. Yeah, go ahead, Tina.
Well, when you put it in the future context, what do we want? Upcoming topics?
Mm-hmm.
So a constant thing going around in my brain is, what is the right level of, how do you fund an apprenticeship? Whether you're just for feeding your own talent pool, or feeding it for just, you know, the general demand of the industry needs it. We all know that there's multiple funding sources out there. I don't have a clear picture in my head what some target number of funding is. Like, I haven't seen ROI analysis from employer. I mean, Bitwise as an employer, we haven't published ROI analysis on here's an ROI for apprenticeship when it relates to supplying your own workforce pool versus, you know, the demand of the industry. That's kind of one of those that keeps me up at night.
Kristen, I saw you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I'd love to follow up on Adrian, or with Adrian on this one too, but one of the things I'd love to talk about is, you know, there is some logic inside the apprenticeship model that for new occupations or occupations with substantive change for which there aren't a lot of training programs, it's a really good model. And Charger helped tried that with EV EV maintenance techs, and it's been tried a couple of other times. But it seems to me, if I sort of think about the combination of infrastructure, climate, and technology, there's going to be an awful lot of change in an awful lot of occupations that are not going to have ready programs right behind them. And apprenticeship is very well suited to that. So I'd love to talk about that mix, like the climate, infrastructure, technology, and using apprenticeship as the vehicle for creating training, because it is training and it is a job, right? So, so I'd love to sort of have more. It's very hard to even explain this because there are so few models of it. Which is why I'm going to reach out to Adrian after this. Anyway, that's one. And then just another thing, one thing I've really liked about this group is that there's, you know, we've bounced back and forth a little bit between like sharing what you're doing, exploring questions, having a featured speaker. And I kind of really like that mixed, whether it's all done in one, you know, like there's a component of this, a speaker, and then a component of that, or whether it alternates. I do like the mix. I think it keeps it kind of fresh and kind of energetic. So I like that a lot.
So I'll jump in. This is Adrian. So prior to coming to the American Association of Community Colleges, I was at a college in Maryland, and we basically did, well, I did 7 apprenticeships, occupations, all non-traditional, where the college was both a sponsor and the related instruction provider. They were all credit programs. And we had to be approved in Maryland, even if it existed as a Department of Labor apprenticeship. It's just a formality that you do with states that have their own Office of Apprenticeship. I don't see it as a problem developing other occupations. It just needs to go through an approval process. So, and as work continues and evolves, especially in the manufacturing and the tech field, there is always going to be new occupations that are going to become prevalent in the work experience. So I don't see that as a barrier. It's just somebody has to sit down and literally write the curriculum and what it's going to be, and then you go through the approval process, which can take, it's a process, it takes time.
So, and I'm working on, I've got some regional funding to do some research and analysis on kind of the cost at the community colleges to run apprenticeship programs as the sponsor, or at least have a robust, I guess, capacity, like, so Foothill College, Chabot Las Positas, Diablo Valley College, Santa Rosa, they've got a lot of building trades programs, so they've got some internal funding that's available when they take their cut of the RSI funding. But when I talk to deans and VPs, they're very concerned about the CAI grants and getting started, because they don't know how many people do they need to run the program after that money goes away. So we're hoping to do some actual, I don't know if it's ROI, but really what's the cost analysis for a community college to utilize an existing, quality program and flip it into apprenticeship? How many people on campus can be repurposed? So you're already paying for somebody, you're just kind of reorganizing their responsibilities. And then how many new positions might need to be filled or created? And that's not a fun conversation right now with dwindling enrollment. So, but I'm hoping to, in the next 9 to 12 months, have some decent numbers. Maybe even before that. There's some anecdotal stuff, but that's kind of what I'm working on too. And Kristen, I'll probably have to talk to you guys about some of that. So, hi.
And we can bring you back then as a presenter and talk about your findings. Awesome. Any other thoughts from the group?
Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, that's a really interesting, like that analysis, John, because I think we've all looked at the state as well as the federal Department of Labor. So DOS and DOL on like, hey, we've got all these really aggressive goals around apprenticeships over the next 10 years, but do you know what it'll take in terms of building out your teams, your infrastructure, what those investments will look like internally to be able to approve and manage enough programs, right? And so, because I think you're right, Kristen, like with the Inflation Reduction Act, and there's a lot of language in there on funding of apprenticeships that require prevailing wages and all of these new and emerging sectors. But if we don't have the infrastructure to meet that demand, we're just there's huge opportunity costs like at play here. So yeah.
Luther, what do you have?
So I want to follow up, John, on what you said about with declining enrollments not being a comfortable topic. And one of the things I've been thinking about is a lot of the apprenticeships, particularly in newer areas, some of the tech areas, are fragile. I mean, they're just getting off the ground. They're starting with low numbers. And now we're seeing in the Bay Area, at least, a ton of tech-related layoffs, et cetera. I worry about that. I worry about sustainability, that, today it's like the hottest thing. But again, I've always been surprised by these great programs, but small numbers. And then this comes in. I wonder if there's any models of people could talk about how do you sustain something like this throughout the cyclical economy? That would be interesting to hear.
So strangely enough, I'm going to the Global Apprenticeship Network Conference next week in Australia. I'm on a panel, and that's one of the topics for the panel is employers deciding that they don't want to continue having apprenticeship programs. So I'll ask lots of questions. I was planning on doing more asking than answering, but that's one of them. So, and they've got me running all over the place, talking to employers and other folks for a week. So, I'll be the speaker next time.
Oh, great.
So,
thank you.
I'll let you know, but that is something interesting as they're like, what do we do if we can't continue? Well, why don't we just start with starting, and then we'll figure that other part out later on. So
Recording in progress.
Yes, I think Tina, you had your hand raised first. Go ahead.
So when I think of, like, I did some research on the origins of apprenticeship, right? And they started in the trades. And of course, in the trades, there's also organized labor unions. And most of the tech economy is not rallied around organized labor. I feel like that's an elephant in the room that maybe should have some context about, is it helpful? Is it not helpful? Can we build an apprentice program in a different model when the original one was built under that model? Again, just the type of questions that keep me up at night.
Annie, go ahead.
Got that. I love that idea, Tina. I'd love to follow up with the Robert Half, a friend who came in. They were working as intermediary, and I thought, this is it. They have the employers. They're already, used to just being the EOR. They have the infrastructure. They can, set everything up, because I think sometimes the intermediaries may not have all that at their disposal. But I feel, and it was just the infant stages of this new program, but it didn't sound as easy as I thought. And I don't mean to be, I'm laughing in so far as, I think we've all experienced these challenges as intermediaries, or those of us who've been in that role. So I'd be just curious to hear, on that topic of sustaining models in the professional services space, learnings from that program. And I'm blanking on who they were.
Was it Jorge?
Huh?
Was it Jorge Marquez?
Yeah, it was Jorge, and I'm just trying to remember, were they with a community college?
Yeah, they partner with different community colleges right now in Northern and Southern California on cybersecurity and some other IT apprenticeships.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, they are going to scale across the country, and they really cracked that nut in terms of tech companies that don't have headcount for FTEs, but have massive contract budgets, right? So tech companies, Annie and I have been traumatized in trying to pitch apprenticeship to tech companies over the years, because they say, we don't hire entry-level roles. We'll hire you if you have 3 years of experience. If you are new, you're going to be a contractor, right? And so we can't participate in registered apprenticeship because you're not an FTE. But Robert Half is kind of, they've solved that.
Have they? I mean, I'd be interested in it. Again, Jorge was just sort of saying, wow, it isn't, I guess I was intrigued, and my read was on some of his just early findings was that, and this kind of goes to Tina's point about apprenticeships taking hold in the professional sector's tech space. Like it was also part educating what an apprentice is, and then trying to, how it differed from, say, buy versus grow your talent. And I just thought that the staffing agency in that intermediate role was really interesting there.
Adrienne? You're on mute, but Adrienne, go ahead and speak. Can't hear, unfortunately. Okay, maybe we'll give her a moment. Yeah, let's see here. We've got this nice long list of questions. So, right, no, yeah, okay. Yeah, so this good brainstorm about topics. I think before we move on, I'm curious if anyone has, just for our reference going forward as our little team plans the next few months of apprenticeship, if anyone has any folks, like any panelists they either personally know that they would like to bring on, or suggestions or dream guests that they would like to throw into the mix. Oh, sorry.
Let's get Brent Parton back here. See if we can find some time on his calendar to stop in. Give us a DOL perspective. I'm only halfway joking. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to get a DOL perspective and get them involved in this. Maybe it's just Doug, the regional guy, to get him involved, to let us know, because they keep dropping funding, and I'm not keeping track of it quick enough for it to come to watch it. But I'm looking to get some data from Doug also around apparently there are more DOL registered apprentices in California that are not registered with the DAS. So there's some interesting gap analysis to be done around what they've done that hasn't connected to California. So that might be interesting.
I think I'd like to hear from more employers, like folks that have decided that apprenticeship was a good fit for them, you know, that kind of came over to the other side and see what convinced them. Like that's always a personal fascination of mine, given all the work that I've done with my team to try, including Orion and Annie, try to convince folks that it's such a great idea and it means the world to us and we totally get it. But it's just there's a disconnect, but sometimes it does connect, and folks get it. And so my experience has been Code for America and Twilio, that they're just supreme champions of apprenticeship, and just like to hear from more of those folks, just on kind of like in the inspiration column, like sometimes it works. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, Tina, if you Bitwise want to kind of join in the conversation on that end too, you have such a history.
Oh, we always have people that love to talk about our experience as an employer. So,
Yeah.
you can always tap a shoulder there and get somebody to talk for sure. But I will say, because it was brought up like the model, the Robert Half model and things like that. And so I do know that, so we're a tech consulting arm, right? So that's the aspect that makes us an employer, which is how do we effectively integrate in apprenticeship into outsourced tech work? And that is an interesting dynamic, if you ask me. But I always compare it to, just for example, and you talked about, your kid. I have a nephew who, out of college, got hired by IBM as an entry-level person. And, it wasn't an apprenticeship, but in reality, when I track what his first year was, it was really an apprenticeship. But companies like IBM don't call it an apprenticeship, right? They call it, career tracking, and, it's just not called that. And so I'm curious what other people's observation is about that. Do you think that apprenticeship is really out there, but not everybody feels the need to call what they do an apprenticeship?
There's that endless sequence of internship and apprenticeship. So I think a lot of folks.
Yeah, we've
apprenticeship adjacent, at least.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of programs that are definitely, would qualify as an apprenticeship and could probably meet the requirements of a registered apprenticeship, but just aren't registered, right? And like this came up years ago, but we were joking and we were like, the Department of Labor should copyright the word apprenticeship, because that would take a lot of our troubles away. We're like, that's an apprenticeship because it meets all these standards. That is some other form of work-based learning, right? So yeah, there's a lot of great programs out there. But if they're not preparing people for the industry and they're just preparing people for one company, right? It's a little self-serving. It's not, I think from our standpoint, it's not an apprenticeship, right?
Adrienne, you had something to say. I'm sorry you had to leave and come back again to say it. It's good to see your face.
No worries. My camera now, it was just a setting that didn't allow me to be seen or heard. So so I worked with a couple of major employers, one being AT&T, and we never had a problem with the number of apprentices that they needed. Actually, we couldn't even fill the numbers that they needed. So I think there are needs that are out there, but it takes the education of the employer of understanding what it is and how it can benefit their workforce. And it may not be one employer for the occupation. It may mean multiple employers in the same occupation. Because once an employer goes through and has a very good experience, which very rarely do they not have the experience, then they're going to continue. So it's not a problem of sustainability. It's a problem of sometimes not having enough students to be able to fill the needs.
Thank you for saving the chat, Annie. These are some great ideas. I think that was it for apprenticeship focus questions, unless anyone else has something they'd like to chime in, and we can also circle back around. I wanted to kind of check in on these other questions that I had listed earlier, which is more broadly about kind of how your year went, 2022 in review, or 2023 upcoming. So the challenges and opportunities on the horizon for apprenticeship. I know we've kind of touched on some of these already, but anything that you sort of see coming down the pipe that seems exciting or kind of raises some alarms for you. Does anyone have anything they'd like to speak to on that? Thank you, Annie, for putting that in chat.
I'm entering into an electrical vehicle, creating a hub, and a hub meaning a source of information, not a hub as in a hub that we're going to work here. It's more of a source of information, almost like a community of practice. And I'm always looking for contacts in the electric vehicle and battery, because our specific grant that I'm working on now is with specifically Tesla and Panasonic, because Panasonic creates the batteries for Tesla. And then we'll be working with community colleges throughout the country. So I'm always looking for subject matter experts.
Are you working with Teresa Grant on that?
Yes, I am. She just spoke at our Workforce Development Institute conference last week in California.
Okay. Yeah, I worked with them on getting their their apprenticeship going in their Tesla facility originally. So
In Texas or
in
Nevada?
Fremont with their
Okay.
industrial maintenance folks. So
It will definitely be working with Truckee Meadows, which is in Nevada. And then there's at least three other locations in the country that we'll be working with, but we haven't totally decided on which 3 locations it'll be yet.
okay.
Temple?
Okay, this is to answer what Adrian asked for. I'm not really a subject matter expert, but I am. So this is what your Teslas run on, okay? This is an actual battery, okay?
Oh, wow, cool.
That fits inside all the Teslas. All they do is they just clump them together in different shapes and weld them together, okay? And these are, I don't know whether you can see it, but it looks different from a regular battery, but it's just another type of rechargeable battery. But the Tesla has either hundreds or thousands of them clumped underneath the chassis, and whatever your training program is, it's just clumping them together in such a fashion that it powers the car. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's what you're after.
Well, we're also going to be working with people who need to build the charging stations. And then we're also looking at it from a commercial standpoint, because there's a lot of municipalities that have municipality vehicles, whether it's a light duty truck, whether it's something else, but that's what we're also looking at, expanding and becoming a community of practice, not just strictly for your personal vehicle, but for all vehicles, potential electric vehicles, and maybe even electric bikes.
So to answer also this question is, when I interviewed with Tesla, I think last month or something, but it wasn't, I couldn't get the job I wanted, but that was actually the topic that I brought in, okay, was that they did not have the infrastructure for the charging of EV vehicles in California. And the only way that I thought up for them to address this issue is to utilize gas stations or place or private, have some sort of private enterprise that would combine the gas station with the charging stations, because they're already there. Okay, and it seems the right way to do it, because as you're stopping the use of gas powered vehicles, they want to have some sort of familiarity, so they know how to go into a gas station, they know what it is. So instead of gassing up the car, you're charging up the car. And the old when I read up before my interview, I read up on Tesla's history. Okay, and their Elon Musk's old philosophy in California was to swap batteries inside these charging stations, so-called charging stations. But that didn't seem to work very well, because number one, you'd have to have banks of these, they have to be charged, and there's a lot of manufacturing type issues involved also. Okay, but in the long run,
I'm just to point out that Luther's had his hand raised for a minute, so just
okay.
yeah, what if you
I'll quickly finish. In the long run, you have to address those infrastructure issues with Tesla and the state of California, or whatever state, so that they would use the electric vehicles. And if you don't address that, the demand won't be there, the cars won't be there, and you just it's a dead end. Okay, that's all I have.
No, thank you for sharing. Luther, go ahead.
2 quick points. One, I think, Tina, you raised the issue about organized labor and elephant in the room and that sort of thing. Yeah, I would echo that. I think it's something we need to address. It's not being generally addressed around. So that's one thing. I had a discussion with some folks looking at the issue of internet infrastructure, which includes roles for fitters and plumbers. It includes roles for electricians and people like that. I wonder if that might be a good platform for a conversation. So that's kind of one issue. 2, Adrian, great work that you're doing. I was wondering if you ever work with Pam Gutman from the Bay Area Community College System because she's my go-to expert on EV training and that sort of thing.
I have not yet. Again, I just finished another grant, and I wasn't working with a college in the Bay Area. I was working with Riverside and a few other colleges, but more, I think, in Northern California.
Okay. Could you
So I'd love her contact. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could put your email in the chat, I'll make an introduction.
I was going to also use the opportunity to point out, if anybody isn't already getting emails, I sent out an email to a bunch of folks about this session. If you didn't get that and you'd like to get emails reminding you about apprenticeships in the future, feel free to put your email in the chat. Or Ian shared a form earlier, which I can kind of grab the link to as well. But we want to make sure everyone's in the loop. What's going on? There's the form, but yeah, feel free to put your email in the chat and I'll add you to my list. We're approaching the finish line here, which
It looks like John has his hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, John, don't mean to ignore you.
Okay. This isn't easy. It's not. Just 2 quick things on the infrastructure stuff. Luther and Adrian, I'm working with Pam, and we actually did a CAI grant with Chabot Las Positas around automotive tech repair people. So hopefully that will get approved. That's actually with an intermediary. So this round, I tried to insert intermediaries into a couple of the grants. It's time to just get them in there. So IWSI America is they're already doing apprenticeships for automotive in Kentucky and some other places. And they're in California on a Department of Rehab project down in Orange County. So that's Nick Wyman and his team. And then CareerWise is on the other one for youth apprenticeship education one. One quick thought, and then I do need to bump to, is one thing that we still haven't seen the government do yet is leverage contracts with our vendors. I know that was kicked around a lot at the labor agency. that's something that kind of props up the building trades apprenticeship system wide, you know, because of public works jobs. And it's good. There's a good reason for having a skilled and trained workforce. But there's the opportunity, I think, with even our local smaller governments, agencies, districts, you name it, counties, to leverage that that vendor network of, okay, if you want to do work with us, you have to be part of an apprenticeship program to train your employees, because we're going to spend our money and we want our money spent well with a skilled and trained workforce.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Something to think about. So I have to split, but
Thanks for joining us, John.
I'll report back in a month.
You too.
Thank you.
All right.
Cheers.
Australia.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. I wanna go to-
Yeah, and I guess somewhat in closing, just one of the last bullets on our little list of questions was if there was any publications anyone had to recommend. I know there's been a few that have been shared in the chat already, but like any homework that you would like to pass along to us, or readings that you've done recently that were you found interesting that you'd want to share out with the group, you can put it in chat or tell us about it.
So I'll just mention, again, I just finished what's referred to as the Expanding Community Colleges Apprenticeship. And the information as far as the data points is actually on apprenticeship.gov. There is a lot of resources on apprenticeship.gov, but you have to know how to navigate that site. Our information is under the educators, and you can literally you can do VAN, V-A-N, it stands for Virtual Apprenticeship Network. And that was a resource tool that AACC developed for the Department of Labor. And that has a lot of very good information on apprenticeship, talking with employers, talking to political leaders, as well as how do you start and how do you determine your return on investment.
Sorry, Adrian, I was busy trying to find something else. What was the reference to that so we can share?
Apprenticeship.gov, can put it in the chat. Let me see if I can find the link, and I'll put the link directly to the Virtual Apprenticeship Network, which is referred to as the VAN. But you can go on educators and you should be able to do a search on that. And that's what it's called.
Thank you. Not apprenticeship related per se, but indirectly it is. There's just an interview with some college bound seniors in the Times today. And you'll note throughout they're saying, you know, I want to go to a school where I can get a good internship, right? And so this prevails as the US model that, you know, looks a lot like apprenticeships. So I think it's just interesting that, you know, we still kind of push forward that. And if there could be a way to, you know, start to bring apprenticeships more into, you know, what, and this touches on the degreed apprenticeship topic a bit, I think, as we look to expand in professional services and the like.
Well, any closing thoughts from anyone? You didn't get a chance to say that you'd like to say? No, it's great. We're looking forward to hopefully meeting in person again sometime this year, although that will leave out some of our friends in, say, Oregon or New Mexico. But yeah, this felt like the next best thing to meeting in person, and just sort of like a casual kind of exchange of ideas.
Mark, I know you joined. Any thoughts from your end? Topics you might want to see us cover in the year?
No, I mean, I think you know, discussed some of them. I mean, it's our, I mean, I've been working at it for a while. It's just getting companies to buy in. I mean, it's just, you know, sometimes I don't quite, they talk about how difficult it is to hire and they can't find people. And it's not, I mean, it's like, well, why don't you train from within? Well, we want to hire somebody with experience, but we're willing to look at it now. Like I went to Ghirardelli yesterday and saw them making chocolate, and they have 30 maintenance folks. And it's like, well, you know, we want to hire somebody as a journey level person. well, all right, can't do that, you know, but they have all these entry-level workers. Like, don't you have anybody that you think is a good worker that you might want to move up? Well, yeah, maybe. So I don't quite get it. They want the quick and easy fix. So, and it's really not that expensive. You know, community colleges are inexpensive. Actually, it's free out here in California to send them through the classes. So I don't know. And I used to work in manufacturing, so I never, not as a, you know, managerial level, but so yeah, that's the biggest issue.
It's reorganizing systems.
Yeah, I'm laughing, Mark, because I don't know if you saw today there was a story that came through on Bloomberg, and it was this utterly dystopian view of what Gen Z experiences on entering the workforce. And you just think like, it's just such not a mystery why people leave, right? I mean, it's just the most awful kind of combination of kind of no onboarding, no relationship, 50 million platforms, 70 million passwords, you know, monitoring constantly, people setting up systems that make their screens move even when they're not there. So they're trying to game the systems that are monitoring them. I mean, just this horrific, like dystopian view, right? And then employers at the end are like, we just can't understand it.
Yeah, you're making me think, Kristen, of a New Yorker cartoon. It was Lassie, like Lassie, Timmy's caught in a work function. You know, so I'll try to find that and share that as part of the recap. But
right.
So and you know, you bring up a great point, because of some of the apprentices I worked with in tech were often thrown off by those very things.
Yeah.
The code of, you know, work and these platforms, and trying to dig, especially with remote work since 2020.
But that's part of why apprenticeship works, you know, because there's a specific mentor. And often when the mentor is going through this too, they're like, oh my God, this system is terrible. We need to fix it, right? So you kind of reveal a lot of things that need fixing organizationally. And that may be part of the issue, is it sort of is it's also a transparency function, although no one kind of talks about it that way. But
thank you, everyone. This was absolutely fantastic. And it feels like an hour can go real long, or it can go real fast. And this one went real fast.
Really fast.
Yeah, this is great. It's such a great group of people. And it's so fun to hear the passion. I mean, I think a lot of us, maybe not a lot, but speaking from personal experience, one can feel kind of lonely or alone in the work. And so it's real nice to be able to check in and hear that everyone, it means a lot to all of us. So thank you so much. And I really think we should look at getting a YouTube feed going with these videos so that we can revisit. But yeah, you'll be hearing from me about the next one, the fourth Wednesday in February, 4:30 in the evening. Thanks everyone so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye everybody, take care.
Go on.
Take care. And Anita, I
Thank
just
you.
sent the chat, so we'll have that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annie, and to your little furry friend.
Yes.
Thank you all. Have a nice evening.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
All right.